There are people alive today who can see underwater better than you can. Others appear to have developed physical adaptations after generations of life at sea. One culture believes it's responsible for keeping the entire Earth in balance. Another has rejected the modern world for tens of thousands of years, on purpose. None of this is folklore. It's happening right now, in places most of the world has never heard of. These are 11 human cultures that somehow survived against every empire, disease, and border that tried to erase them. History wiped out thousands of cultures like these. These 11 made it anyway. We're crossing 4 continents for this one. Rainforests, deserts, frozen tundra, open ocean, mountain peaks. Some of these peoples escaped empires that tried to conquer them. Some outlasted diseases that wiped out entire neighboring populations. Some fled colonization and never came back. Some simply refused to change, no matter what showed up at their borders. History had plenty of chances to erase every one of them. Somehow, all 11 are still here. Here's how rare that actually is. Researchers estimate that nearly half of the roughly 7,000 languages spoken on Earth today are endangered, with as many as 1,500 projected to disappear entirely by the end of the century. And when a language goes, the culture built around it usually isn't far behind. So let's start somewhere you can't even drive to. Deep in the rainforest of Papua, in the Indonesian province bordering Papua New Guinea, there's a group known as the Korowai, sometimes spelled Kalufo, who build their homes not on the ground, but in the trees. Some of these structures sit 50, even close to 100 feet in the air, lashed together with rattan vine and sago palm, no nails, no modern tools. For a long time, outsiders assumed these tree houses were built purely for defense, to stay safe from rival clans on the forest floor. That's part of it. 2 other reasons matter just as much. The practical one: up in the canopy, away from the humid ground level, there's better airflow, fewer mosquitoes, fewer snakes. The other reason won't show up in most engineering explanations. Many Korowai believe the forest floor at night belongs to spirits, including accusations of witchcraft that, in rare and now largely historical cases, clan elders once punished with death. Living above the ground means staying out of the spirit's way entirely. Most Korowai clans had almost no contact with the outside world at all until the mid-1970s. Their entire social structure, their laws, their spiritual beliefs evolved in near total isolation, without ever borrowing from outside. And climbing up isn't casual, either. Getting to the entrance means scaling a single-notch log, sometimes in the rain, sometimes carrying a child on your back. It's a daily commute that would put most of us on the ground, permanently. If surviving the rainforest sounds impossible, wait until you see who learned to survive with nothing to hide behind at all. No canopy, no cover, just open plains stretching to the horizon. This is Maasai territory, spanning parts of Kenya and Tanzania, often written in English as Maasai. The Maasai are pastoralists. Their whole way of life is built around herding cattle. Cattle here aren't just livestock. They're currency, social status, and in some traditions, a gift from the sky god Nkai himself. A Maasai man's wealth has traditionally been measured not in money, but in the size of his herd. And historically, one of the most demanding rites of passage into adulthood involved young warriors, called Moran, proving their courage. In earlier generations, that meant a supervised lion hunt. Today, the practice has largely shifted toward ceremonial and symbolic versions, partly due to conservation laws protecting East Africa's lion populations. What's fascinating is how deliberately the Maasai have protected their traditions while living right next door to some of the fastest modernizing cities in East Africa. The Adumu, that jumping dance you may have seen in photos, isn't performed for tourists first. It's a coming-of-age ritual, a display of strength during ceremonies marking a young man's transition into warrior status. There's a harder side to this story, too. Over the last several decades, large areas of traditional Maasai grazing land have been converted into national parks and wildlife conservancies, land the Maasai had used for generations, sometimes displacing whole communities in the name of conservation tourism. It's a genuine, ongoing tension. The same landscapes that make East Africa famous for wildlife tourism are, in many cases, land the Maasai are now fighting to stay connected to. Modern life is close enough to touch. Large parts of Maasai society have simply chosen not to touch it back, even as the ground beneath that choice keeps shifting. You'll hear the phrase first contact a few more times in this video, so it's worth explaining what that actually tends to look like. It's almost never a single dramatic moment. It's usually years, sometimes decades, of careful, cautious approach, often initiated by missionaries, government anthropologists, or researchers, and just as often refused, avoided, or met with open hostility. And when contact does happen, it rarely goes the way outsiders expect. Sometimes it changes everything within a generation. And sometimes, as you're about to see, a people can have almost no contact with the modern world at all, and still end up teaching it something. In Russia's Sakha Republic, a region so closely tied to this culture that the people themselves are often called the Sakha, with Yakut being a more common term in English, winter temperatures regularly drop past 50 below zero. Not wind chill, actual temperature. The nearby village of Oymyakon has recorded some of the coldest inhabited temperatures ever measured on Earth. Cold enough that breath freezes midair with an audible crackling sound locals call the whisper of stars. The Yakut didn't just endure this cold. They built a way of life around it. A horse breed tough enough to survive outside all winter, digging through snow with its hooves to find grass underneath, reindeer herding, and a living shamanic tradition that treats rivers, forests, and weather as things worth communicating with. As the Siberian permafrost has thawed in recent decades, it's uncovered near perfectly preserved woolly mammoth remains, some with skin and fur intact after tens of thousands of years. Frozen in the exact ground the Yakut still live on. There's a phrase you'll hear from people who spent time with Yakut elders. The cold doesn't test you once. It tests you every single day for your entire life. One culture learned to survive where the air itself freezes. The next learned to survive where most people can't even breathe. The Bajau, sometimes called more broadly the Sama Bajau, live across the waters of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia, spending so much of their lives at sea that many traditionally raise their children on houseboats called lepa-lepa, rarely setting foot on dry land for weeks at a time. The twist came in 2018. In a study published in the journal Cell, researchers comparing the Bajau to a neighboring, non-diving population found their spleens were, on average, about 50% larger. An organ, physically larger in an entire population, the spleen releases oxygenated red blood cells during a dive, and a bigger spleen means a bigger reserve. Some Bajau divers can hold their breath for several minutes, descending 200 feet or more without any equipment, using nothing but wooden masks and a weighted rock to speed their descent. Genetic testing pointed to a specific variant tied to spleen size that appears more often in Bajau populations than in nearby land-based communities, suggesting this isn't purely a trained skill. It may be closer to a physical adaptation, built up over generations of a life spent almost entirely in the water. There's a difficult reality underneath this story, though, because many Bajau communities have traditionally lived entirely at sea, moving between the waters of 3 different countries. A significant number have never been formally registered as citizens of any of them. That leaves many Bajau without access to basic health care, education, or legal protections, a modern, bureaucratic problem facing a culture whose way of life predates the national borders now cutting through their waters. Sit with that for a second. A community where holding your breath for minutes at a time isn't a party trick. It's Tuesday. It's how you get dinner. And yet, in the eyes of the modern world's paperwork, some of these divers technically don't exist. That's a pattern that's going to come up more than once on this list. Skills that look almost supernatural to outsiders, sitting right next to real, present-day struggles most of us never hear about. In the eastern highlands of Papua New Guinea, there's a community known for one of the most striking visual traditions on this list. The Asero Mudmen, covered head to toe in pale river clay, wearing heavy, sculpted masks meant to look like spirits. The Mudmen move in slow, deliberate motions during ceremonial performances. According to tradition, the look originated from an ancestor who covered himself in mud to escape enemies after a lost battle. An eerie, ghost-like appearance was enough to send rival warriors fleeing, convinced they were facing the dead. The masks are handmade, molded from river clay and dried in the sun. some fitted with tusks or horn-like protrusions to make the wearer look even less human. Making one isn't quick, either. It can take days of shaping and drying before a mask is ready, and the largest ones are heavy enough that performers train to move in them without breaking the slow, deliberate style the tradition calls for. Today, the Asero Mudmen also perform at Papua New Guinea's national cultural festivals, which has sparked an honest debate within anthropology, whether performing for outsiders dilutes the tradition, or whether it exactly what's kept the practice alive and funded for the next generation. There's no single right answer. What matters is that the tradition itself is endured, passed down not in writing but in clay, one mass at a time. The Bajau adapted to the ocean over generations. The next group didn't just adapt to it. They trained their kids to see through it. Often called sea gypsies, the Moken live among the islands of the Andaman Sea, moving seasonally between boats and temporary shelters along the coast of Thailand and Myanmar. Researchers studying Moken children found they can see clearly underwater, nearly twice as well as European children tested under the same conditions. Their pupils constrict tighter, and their eyes adjust focus in a way most human eyes simply don't do naturally. It turns out this isn't a rare genetic gift, it's trainable. Moken kids grow up practicing this underwater vision from a young age, diving for shellfish and sea cucumbers on the ocean floor. Scientists later tested European children using the same training method, and within weeks, their underwater vision improved too. Then something unexpected happened. And it isn't about their eyes at all. It happened on December 26, 2004. As the Indian Ocean tsunami approached, most people had no warning at all. Moken elders noticed something the sea was doing that didn't match anything normal. The water pulling back too far, too fast, cicadas going silent, dolphins swimming out to deeper water, drawing on generations of oral tradition about the laboon, the wave that eats people. Several Moken communities moved to high ground before the wave hit. On the Surin Islands, where roughly 200 Moken lived, accounts from Survival International, and researchers who studied the aftermath cite a single fatality. One disabled man who couldn't reach high ground in time. That's out of a disaster that killed over 175,000 people region-wide. It's one of the clearest documented examples anywhere in the world of oral environmental knowledge, providing life-saving warning before official alerts reached many nearby communities, which means the mystery was never really the underwater vision. The mystery is how much other knowledge like that has quietly been lost in cultures that didn't survive long enough to pass it down. In Mali, along a towering sandstone cliff called the Bandiagra Escarpment, the Dogon built entire villages directly into the rock face. Homes, granaries, and burial sites are wedged into ledges and crevices, some of them centuries old, built without cranes or scaffolding, just generations of knowing exactly which handholds and footholds a rock would allow. Getting certain parts of a Dogon village still means climbing narrow rock paths worn smooth by generations of bare feet. The Dogon are also known for elaborate masked dances, some involving masks and headdresses over 10 feet tall, requiring dancers to train for years to move in them without losing balance on uneven ground. Performed during funeral rites called the Dhamma. These ceremonies can take years of preparation and are believed to guide the spirits of the dead into the afterlife. And then there's a part of Dogon culture that's genuinely divided scholars for almost a century. Dogon cosmology includes detailed knowledge about the star system Sirius, including its companion star Sirius B, a dim white dwarf effectively invisible without a telescope, described in Dogon oral tradition long, before it was something you could casually verify. Some researchers have proposed it entered the tradition after contact with European missionaries or astronomers decades earlier. Whether that's the full story is still debated. But maybe the real mystery isn't Sirius B anymore. It's how quickly a piece of outside information can take root and become part of a culture's identity, indistinguishable from a knowledge that was always there. Just off the coast of Sumatra, the Menawe have kept one of the oldest continuous tattoo traditions in the world alive. Tattoos that aren't just decoration, but a record of clan, skill, and spiritual journey. At the center of Menawe spiritual life is the Saikuriai, a shaman believed to act as a bridge between the community and the spirits of the surrounding rainforest. For decades, The Indonesian government actively discouraged these traditions as part of a broader push toward cultural assimilation. Many Menoe families kept the practice alive quietly, even when it wasn't safe to. In recent years, it's come back out into the open. For the Menoe, the forest isn't just where they live. It's family, a relationship that survived being told by its own government to stop. By now, a pattern's probably clear. Most of these cultures aren't just extraordinary. They're under pressure, land taken for tourism, borders that ignore ways of life older than the countries drawing them, governments that once tried to shut these traditions down outright. And when a language disappears, everything it carried disappears with it. The last three cultures on this list survived that pressure by doing something almost nobody else did. They turned isolation itself into protection. No roads, no landmarks, no GPS, just sand in every direction. And one wrong turn could mean you never come back. For centuries, the Tuareg crossed the Sahara like it was home, navigating by starlight alone. Known as the Blue People for the indigo veils that stained their skin over years of wear, the Tuareg built entire trade routes across one of the harshest places on Earth, moving salt and goods across hundreds of miles of open desert. Their society also flips a stereotype worth knowing. It's the men who wear the veil, not the women, and women have traditionally held real property rights and authority. Colonial borders later split Tuareg territory across 5 countries, and decades of conflict followed. Routes their ancestors mapped by starlight are still contested ground today. High in Colombia's mountains lived the Kogi, a people who withdrew from the modern world centuries ago and stayed isolated ever since. They call themselves the Elder Brothers of Humanity and believe it's their job to protect the planet's balance. In 1990, they broke that isolation for one reason: to warn the rest of us. They said the rivers were drying up, the balance was breaking down, and the outside world, the younger brother, needed to start listening before it was too late. Whether or not you buy the worldview, a culture almost entirely cut off from modern life saw environmental damage clearly enough to break its own silence just to sound an alarm. But no culture on this list took isolation further than the last one. North Sentinel Island in the Andaman Sea is home to the Sentinelese, a people who lived in total isolation for an estimated 30,000 to 60,000 years. No metal tools from outside contact, no written language, no interest in changing that. Their history with outsiders is brutal on both sides. A 19th century colonial expedition once kidnapped several Sentinelese. Most died from diseases they had no immunity to. Since then, nearly every contact attempt has ended with the Sentinelese driving visitors away, sometimes fatally, including an American missionary killed in 2018 after ignoring the legal ban on approaching the island. Because of that history and the real risk of wiping out a population with zero immunity to outside disease, India has made it illegal to go within miles of the island. No exceptions. Here's a strange footnote. When the 2004 tsunami hit, researchers flying over the island found a Sentinelese man standing on the beach, aiming a bow and arrow at their helicopter. The entire tribe had already moved to high ground before the wave came, reading the same warning signs that saved the Moken hundreds of miles away. We know almost nothing about how they actually live. And for the first time in human history, that might stay true, permanently by design. 11 cultures, 11 completely different ways of refusing to disappear. But isolation doesn't only happen to people. Sometimes it happens to an entire stretch of ocean. Next week, we're heading into the Atlantic, into the waters and legends behind Bermuda, and the disappearances that made it famous. That's the thread tying all 11 of these together. Different climates, different beliefs, completely different roads to still being here. Empires, disease, colonization, borders drawn by people who never met them. And somehow they're still here. Maybe the real mystery isn't how they survived. It's how much of humanity disappeared while they refused to. Next week, Bermuda. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.